large multi-level classes brought to you by the Teaching English team in the Americas. This is session 2. We hope you have enjoyed the webinar that has just finished with Maria Eugenia Iannido. If you missed that, you can catch up later. And now in this session, we are looking at how to foster autonomy in our learners, even in large classes. So while you're coming into Zoom or getting connected on YouTube, let me check. On YouTube or Facebook, please say hello in the chat. I know a lot of people are, putting their thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you from the Philippines, right? Argentina, Bangladesh, wow, Uruguay, Indonesia, Turkey, Nigeria, Malta, Sri Lanka. Oh my God, this is really global. It's such a nice experience. Welcome, everyone. In Spanish, we say bienvenidos, right? In Spanish, in the Latin countries. Happy to welcome you from the Americas. Just a reminder, if you're joining on Facebook or YouTube, you can write in the comments to us and send us any questions. If you are on Zoom, you can do that through the chat. So let's get ready to start the webinar. In this event today, we're exploring the professional practice of understanding your context, which is part of our CPD framework. And we have multi-level classes in mind. Let us know in the chat or comments, first of all, if you teach a multi-level class. Can you go in the chat and say yes or no? Do you teach multi-level classes? Classes where you have different students at different levels of proficiency? Oh, a lot of you are saying yes. Yeah, exactly. It usually happens, right? Yeah, that students are at different levels of their pathway, let's say, to achieving their goal of learning English. Some of them go slower than others. So yeah, it's usually the case. So now let's start the live interactive webinar called Building Learner Autonomy in Multi-Level Classes with my dearest friend, Milton Bradbury in Mexico, who, as you know, is enjoying the Soccer World Cup these days from Mexico. Welcome, Milton. How are you?
Great, Ralph. Thank you very much for that introduction. And yes, we're very excited here in Mexico about the World Cup. A very good day yesterday for Mexico. So hopefully that continues. Yeah. But yes, I'm excited to deliver this webinar today. Moving on to the topic of today.
Thank you, Milton. Just to tell the audience a little bit about you, Milton is an academic manager from the British Council Mexico, speaks perfect Spanish, and he's originally from England. I'm sorry about that, but he works with the teachers overseeing the professional development of English teachers across the Americas. He's been great help for us as an ELT educator. He is interested in developing learner autonomy and making effective use of available teaching resources in the classroom. So good to see you again, Milton. Where exactly are you in Mexico? Mexico City?
I'm in Mexico City, yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So fully enjoying the World Cup. Great. So let's get it started. When you're ready, you can start slide sharing, and I'll be here anytime you need me. Enjoy the webinar, everyone. Milton's here. So I'm going to turn off my camera. Stop.
Thanks so much, Ralph. Okay. Just give me a second to share my screen. There we go. Okay. So thank you everybody very much for joining today. My name is Milton, as Ralph already introduced me. I'm an academic manager based in Mexico City. I'm originally from England. And today I'm going to be talking about how to build autonomy, learner autonomy, in big multi-level classes. Okay. As we saw from kind of Ralph's quick question, this seems to be a universal feature of classes, whether you teach in primary schools, early year schools, secondary schools, international language schools. This is something, big classes, small classes. I think this is something that all of us educators face, at least at some point in our careers. So hopefully, you'll be going away from this session with some practical ideas and strategies for how to manage this and how to foster an autonomous mindset in your learners. So, kicking off. By the end of this webinar, I hope you will all be able to identify some of the challenges of multi-level classrooms. So before we are able to resolve issues that we face, we need to be able to identify them well, right? Then we're going to look at some learner autonomy strategies which help support progress. I've tried to make these ideas transferable. What I mean by that they are useful for secondary level students, some for primary, some for high levels, low levels, something that we can adapt for different situations. And how to adapt some typical classroom activities in a really simple way with low resources, with not many resources, to meet different learner needs within our class and within our classes. Okay, so let's move on. I'd like to, as Ralph kicked off the session, this is going to be an interactive webinar. I'd like to hear your ideas as much as possible, and I'd like for everybody to share ideas. So to kick off, please type in the chat, what do you find difficult about teaching large multi-level classes? So large classes with students with different levels within the class. Can you type in the chat, please? I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute to do so. Lots of ideas coming in. Great. Some students not listening. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Engaging everyone, engagement, yes, because if you have very strong level students and lower level students, keep making sure the activities are interesting for everyone. Differentiation. Differentiation is a fantastic concept, but quite time consuming and difficult to apply sometimes, right? So making that effective in terms of our planning time. Yeah. Keeping everyone's attention, time management. Okay, discipline. Yeah. Oh, wow. Lots of ideas. Amazing. Yeah. Great. And diversity of backgrounds. Oh yeah, okay. So there's not just differences in level, but differences in social context or interests or backgrounds, of course. Yeah, great. Oh, lots of amazing ideas. Thank you very much for sharing. Let's move on. So kind of summarizing it down really, really simply, because this is such a big question, right? But for the purpose of this webinar, in large multi-level classes, some learners need extra support. So they might find the tasks difficult to understand, or they might not have the level to complete the tasks at the pitch that the class should be. Whereas other learners need more challenge. They find it too easy. That kind of common feature that we all face sometimes of fast finishers. Some learners finish a task in 20 seconds when you were hoping it would last 5 minutes. And then others really need maybe 10 minutes for a task that you hoped would last 5 minutes. Okay. So that is essentially what we're looking at today. Okay. And this can be really difficult for a teacher because of this needs to move into multiple directions. How do I support the learners that need extra support at the same time as I'm providing extra challenge for the learners who find this a bit easier? It can be really difficult to manage those expectations, right? Those needs, rather. So that's what we're going to look at today. Differentiation is definitely a way of doing that, but I'm going to suggest some suggestions today which help foster learner autonomy. Okay, so it can be it's a similar concept to differentiation, but rather than the teacher providing the options, we want the student to be more in charge of their learning. Let's unpack this a little bit more. So please imagine yourself, imagine this scenario. You're monitoring a speaking activity. You're checking the students are speaking. One learner is struggling with vocabulary. They're saying, teacher, teacher, how do you say this? Two have finished. They're like, teacher, teacher, finished. Another is waiting for clarification. Teacher, teacher, what does this word mean? And four hands, all these hands are up at the same time asking you different questions. Have you been in this situation? Say in the chat, give me a thumbs up. Yes, okay, yeah. Yes, all the time, someone says. Oh, yes, okay. Every day. Okay, all the time, yeah. Oh, okay, this seems pretty, yes, frequently. 101% yes, interesting. Ruber's actually got a crying emoji. Yeah, okay, so this seems to be a situation we all face. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, I suspected as much. This is a universal thing that we all have to deal with, right? So, what? So I'm just moving my. Okay, so what is the problem here? Okay, why is this happening? So the learners depend on the teacher, whether it be to provide extra challenge. So these two students who say, "Teacher, this unit finished," they're depending on the teacher to say what next, or they depend on the teacher for extra support. Teacher, what does this word mean? Or they depend on the teacher. Oh, or another example, teacher, how do I say this word? Okay, so whether they need extra support or extra challenge, they're all going to the teacher. And as such, the teacher becomes the bottleneck. So the space, the place where all students are going to make a decision about what next or what to do. And the problem with that is it's very difficult for the teacher because not all learners need the same thing at the same time. So the teacher essentially becomes a bit of an octopus, with 8 arms, sorting out, helping different people with the different needs. And that's, we're humans, we're not octopuses, octopi. So it's exhausting. It's really difficult. And today we're going to look at some ways to unpack that. Okay. So moving on, what would be the perfect situation? Okay. Or the ideal scenario? Structured learner autonomy means creating routines. So not just activities, but routines that students follow every class. These routines that help learners make decisions on their own and continue learning without always relying on the teacher. Often people think about learner autonomy and they associate it with homework. So what to study outside of the class. Well, no, it's also routines within the class which help learners become more autonomous. I want to focus on this idea of routines. It's not individual activities, it's routines that you can apply every class. Okay. Oh, I can already see some interesting examples in the chat. Somebody saying delegating co-teaching roles to advanced teachers. Yes, 100%. That's a good example. We're going to look at some of these ideas during the course of the session. Okay, so let's just contrast very quickly a teacher-dependent classroom and an autonomous classroom. Okay, so in a teacher-dependent classroom, and I'm sure all of us have experienced this at some stage, the teacher says, "Teacher, what do I do now?" with the hands up. In an autonomous classroom, that might happen less because learners know through routines what the next activity is or how to extend their current activity. They know, okay? They don't go to the teacher, "What now?" because they know what's next. In a teacher-dependent classroom, teacher answers every question. So every question about what does this mean? How do I do this? In an autonomous classroom, the teacher becomes just one of multiple sources of support. We're going to look at what those different sources of support could be. In a teacher-dependent classroom, the teacher decides every task. So teacher says, first this, second this, third this. In an autonomous classroom, learners have different choices that they become accustomed, used to deciding for themselves based on what they need. In a teacher-dependent classroom, learners wait for feedback from the teacher. Teacher, I finished. Can you read my task? In an autonomous classroom, learners check with their partner. They review themselves before getting feedback from a teacher. Or even in some cases, teacher feedback may not actually be necessary. Of course, the teacher feedback is the expert feedback, but we don't need that for every single activity. For the essential ones, yes, but not everyone. Okay, so this is a contrast between the two classrooms. Okay, I hope it's obvious that in the teacher-dependent classroom, the teacher will be really tired, and in the autonomous classroom, a lot of the responsibility is for the teacher. It's for the student, excuse me, not the teacher. Okay, good. All right. So let's look at some practical strategies to encourage this this approach. So, Roman asks, are you talking about student-centered? Yeah, a student-centered class. Yeah, definitely, Roman. So, beginning the first strategy, one task, different challenges. This is connected to differentiation, but focusing on fostering learner autonomy. So here is a typical discussion activity you may see in a course book for secondary learners, maybe A2 level, maybe B1, okay? So a question about hobbies. And you have to ask your students, please discuss this in pairs or in threes or in groups, okay? In a multi-level class, some learners will probably struggle. For example, they might say, what does hobby mean, teacher? And you go, oh no, I should have taught the word hobby. Oof. And you have to explain it to 3 different groups. And in a multi-level class, some will finish. They'll finish in 20 seconds. And you're like, oh, what do I do? Some students haven't even started. Okay. So yeah, what do we do for a common question like this, a common activity like this, to ensure that different levels don't all finish at the same time and rely on the teacher? So by offering options, okay? Options on how to approach the task, okay? You can have this on a poster in your classroom, you can put this up on your whiteboard, or you can have it on your presentation, wherever you like, but having the different options. So option 1, answer the questions and give reasons. So for this, students only really need some connectors like because, also, as well, to complete the questions, right? So as long as they have those connectors, they can do that. Option B, answer the questions, give reasons, and ask follow-up questions. So here you need students to know question words like who, why, when, where, okay, to extend the conversation. And option C, use the adverbs of frequencies we saw 2 classes ago when discussing the questions, okay? So you're giving learners different options to approach the task. In an ideal scenario, the higher level learners will choose the most difficult option, and the lower level learners within the group will choose the slightly easier version, okay? And you can train them to do this. So if you see a higher level student going for option A, you say, well, why don't you go for option C? I think you can manage that. Yeah, you know, encourage them to test themselves. Okay. Very quickly in the chat, Here are 3 options that you can just copy and paste for almost any speaking activity. I'd like to hear for you in the next 60 seconds. Can you think of an option D or an option E? Give me some of your potential extra options to encourage learners to just continue doing the task without needing the teacher there. Roman suggested complete a survey. Wow, I really like that idea, Roman. Yeah. Had to think about how to apply that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Astrid says explain to someone. Okay, explain to someone the task, maybe. Yeah, okay. Teach your peer. I like it. Nice. Um, do the same or a different activity. Okay, so maybe change the questions. Option D, adapt the questions, change the questions. I like it. Very nice. Really nice idea. Okay. Peer learning interview, some extra questions. Okay. Explain why you would recommend your favorite hobby to someone. Oh, that's a high level task. Yeah, good. Really nice. Okay, you've got some excellent extra ideas. Interviews, okay, make it. Oh, you could do this as an interview. Pretend partner A is a reporter and partner B is a famous footballer or famous rock star or something. Yeah, I really like it. I like it. Paraphrase the question. Really nice. Oh, you guys are filled with ideas. Better than my ideas, actually. Really good. But I think my ideas can just be copy and pasted for almost any scenario. Okay. And this is what I'm calling the challenge ladder. You have a discussion activity and you have different levels of challenge for that discussion activity. Okay. So challenge 1, just complete the task. Challenge 2, explain your ideas. Challenge 3, extend the discussion. So asking questions, who, which, where, why, when. And challenge 4, using target language creatively. Okay. And you can train your learners to identify, is this task going to be easy for me? So therefore, should I choose the higher challenge options, or do I need to take it easy and choose one of the first level of challenges? Okay. And this is just a kind of simple, it doesn't take a long time to prepare. It doesn't take a long time to train students to do this. You can just copy and paste this onto almost any speaking or even writing or group discussion activity. Okay, great. Okay, act out the dialogues. Yeah, wow, some fantastic ideas. Great. Right, let's move on. Okay, practical strategies 2. Let's look at building independent support systems. Okay, so if this is your case, I'm sure many people are in this situation or they've seen this situation. In many classrooms, learners have this habit. Learner has a problem. Teacher, I don't understand. I finished. What does this activity mean? What does this word mean? What do I do? I don't understand the instructions. And the habit is when they have this problem, they ask the teacher. Okay? The teacher is the expert, right? And that's always going to be true. However, we don't always need the expert to resolve an issue. Okay, so how can we help learners find support independently? Let's have a look at some ideas. So we can have the support network. I like this. I like to put something like this on a poster and put it in my classroom. Um, and we have the support network. So the teacher is one of many different resources that the student can use to help with the problem they face. Okay. So, but students sometimes need to be able to see this. They need to be able to understand this. They need to be able to realize this. Okay. So what else can the student do? They can reread the instructions. Sometimes that's all it requires. Read the instructions again to process it. If you're like me, that's what I need. I need to read instructions 2 or 3 times to really understand. Okay. Check your notes. If it's like, I can't remember this word, probably at some point the teacher has taught that word. So check your vocabulary list or check your grammar analysis or check something that you studied in a previous class. Yeah. Ask a partner. More often than not, in a class of 20, 50% or 30% will, 50, well, hopefully 80% will understand, right? But there will be some that understand, some that don't. So the person next to them, ask them, oh, can you explain this to me? What do we do? What's next? Okay. Use digital tools. Okay, it depends on the classroom. Some classrooms ban mobile phones, which in general I think that's probably a good idea. But if you have a classroom with resources, maybe they have iPads, maybe you do use mobile phones. Use digital tools. Okay, that may be AI, that may be just asking Google, that may just be looking up a grammar page, whatever it may be. Use them. Okay, encourage self-support and use classroom displays. Okay, normally there are displays on, whether for example, on the whiteboards, the grammar analysis, just reviewing that rather than the asking the teacher can be of help. Okay, give a hint. Yeah, I like these. They're nice ideas. Okay. Okay, so somebody's saying the interesting thing is sometimes students are not willing to do so. They want the simplest way, they want the teacher to do it. Well, that's not all. I mean, I'd like to challenge that. That's not always necessarily the simplest way. If the teacher's on the other side of the classroom helping another pair, they might have to wait 5, 10 minutes for the teacher to be available. Is that the simplest scenario when they could just reread their notes or ask their partner? So you can challenge that idea with the students. Look, if you want an immediate answer, have a look at the support network. Try one of these. Okay. And what's also important is that, whether it be primary level students, secondary level students, or adults, whatever, students are often much more mature than we give them credit for. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, explain why you're incorporating this support network. Okay. The idea is that you don't rely on me, the teacher, so much. So you're able to continue learning independently. Obviously, you need to grade your language and phrase that in a way that students will learn. If necessary, explain that in their language, so the first language. But it's important that students understand that the teacher is not just you, oh, I don't want to work. That's not it. No, you're encouraging them to be more independent. And the reason for that is that they learn more effectively that way. So by having that conversation with students really helps. Let's summarize this a little, or not summarize this, like kind of look at this in a different way. So this is essentially the same idea, but I like this because it's a bit catchy. Ask free before me. So you can just introduce this as a simple routine, okay? So before you ask the teacher, you need to do 3 things. Ask a partner, ask another group, or check a resource. And the resource might be a dictionary, it may be the iPad, it may be a handout, it may be what's on the board, okay? So you have to do 3 before you ask me, okay? And then if you still don't understand, then please, yeah, call me, of course. I will come and help, okay? Because that's my role, that's what I do, okay? But ask 3 before me. So essentially the same idea, but it's a bit catchy, and you can incorporate this as a routine, okay? Great. You just have a moment. I would like to zip it for a bit. Let me think. You guys, which of these things do you think your learners would try first if you encourage this routine? Write in the chat. Ask a partner. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the majority of people are saying ask a partner. Yeah, that's good. That is a sign of a healthy classroom environment where students are asking the people beside them, for support. That's great. That demonstrates there's good rapport in the classroom and students feel safe. That's great. Also, people saying to ask another group or check a resource. Great, but that's really good to hear. Nice. Okay, good. Let's move on. And the experts. Oh, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but somebody mentioned this at the beginning of the session. So in every class, some learners understand a task more quickly than others. Okay. So what do you do? Assign temporary experts. Okay. The teacher is the expert, but you can assign, co-teachers, as the person phrased it. So when you know somebody, when you do your first explanation or your first kind of analysis, and you see that one student has really captured it, you can say, okay, here in Mexico, you might say, oh, Juan, you are the expert, or Itzel, you are the expert for this, or you're the expert in your area of the class. So if students still have some questions, they go to Itzel or they go to Juan. Okay, yeah. And one thing that's important to do with this is that you rotate this, so it's not always the same student, because it's quite empowering to be the expert, right? Students want to be the expert, so make sure everybody has the opportunity to be the expert. And it can foster, a good a situation where people ask each other for ideas, they support each other. Okay, great. Okay, so very quickly, if we're rotating the experts, what could a lower level student be an expert in? Because we don't want to ask lower level students to explain the language to higher level students. What could a lower level student be an expert in? Oh, Sarah, you said time. Amina said time. Okay, yes, definitely. Timekeeping. So, uh, Pedro is the lower level student. Pedro, you are the expert in time. Okay, we have 10 minutes for this. You're in charge of making sure everybody or everyone in your group finishes on time. Yeah, good. That's a nice idea. Also, things like, for example, you could ask them to check spelling, for example, okay? Because they can use their dictionary and say, be careful with this word. There's a mistake here, okay? They could be scribes as well. Yeah, good. Study buddies. Lots of great ideas. I like it. Great. This is not a new concept. Fantastic. Yeah, but we can use this to encourage an autonomous, independent approach. Okay, great. Practical strategies 3, encouraging learners to play an active role in their learning. Okay, let's have a look at some kind of slightly more abstract, not abstract, but slightly more bigger activities with larger impact. Okay, so student created feedback criteria. What does this mean? Asking students to tell you as the teacher what they want feedback on. Okay, now this is if this is done well, this can be incredibly empowering. Okay, the students really take control of their own learning. Okay, so for example, you could to begin this idea, you could say, okay, so there are 3 options. I can give you feedback on spelling, I can give you feedback on grammar, I can give you feedback on vocabulary, or one more idea of yours, and this could be this could be cohesion. This could be using cohesive devices. This could be, it could be the punctuation. It could be the use of a specific area of grammar. Okay, or you can get them to choose. Okay, keeping a learning diary. So as homework, students write every day. Today I learned this. Today I found this difficult. Today, next class I'm going to review this. By doing that, at the end of every class, you're encouraging them to reflect on their learning and to think about what the next stages are for them. And yeah, regular reflection on activities is so important. So use the teacher incorporating good signposting activities between lesson stages. So we just finished, you as a teacher, you can say, we just finished this activity of discussing hobbies. Why did we do this? And hopefully, if you have well-trained learners, they'll say to practice speaking or to practice adverbs of frequency or to feel more confident when speaking. Yeah. That's all you can do. That's kind of retrospective reflection. What about prospective? We've just finished an analysis on adverbs of frequency. What is the next activity? Ask the students, what will we do next? Hopefully, if they understand the order of learning in the classroom, they say, oh, we just studied the grammar, now we will practice. Okay, encouraging them to to play an active role in the class, to understand even the staging of lessons. Encouraging a to say list in today's class. So instead of like a to-do list, a to say today. Today I want to say 3 phrasal verbs. Today I want to say 2 idiomatic expressions. And today I want to say 3 adverbs of frequency. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Another thing that I think is really important to foster in autonomous classrooms is encouraging learners to play an active role is looking at repair strategies. What are repair strategies? These are this is language phrases that we use to repair the conversation when there's a breakdown in conversation. So when people don't understand something or they're not sure about something, these are phrases that you can do to fix the situation yourself. So asking for clarification, checking understanding, paraphrasing, asking for repetition. These are all phrases that empowers the learners to fix a breakdown or fix something that they don't understand themselves. So encouraging using these repair strategies in the classroom, you could ask students to write the subtitles to a short video, and they must include repair strategies. This is a really fun activity. I've seen some hilarious videos with subtitles. It can be really, really funny if students really take it seriously. You can role play a phone call with a bad line. Okay, so you can have some background noise. You can have some white noise playing, and 2 people have to have a conversation and use repair strategies to help. Verbal boxing. We're going to explain this in a second. I think this is a really fun activity. I'm going to demonstrate it with Ralph. Just give me one moment. Or write a dialogue that must include 4 repair strategies. Okay, so it's a similar idea to the subtitles, but using something which is personal. It could be, well, you and your partner in the classroom, right? So let's have a look at verbal boxing. Ralph, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here,
Yes. Okay,
ready
Ralph,
to box.
you're going to be my opponent in this activity. So verbal boxing, what happens? The teacher provides a topic and the students have to debate that topic going backwards and forwards. And when a student doesn't have another idea or cannot respond, they've been knocked out. Okay? And you can do this at the front of the class, or you can do this in small groups, whatever works best. Okay? But let's demonstrate this, Ralph. So, Ralph, you're going to be the topic is going to be cats versus dogs. Okay? Which are better as pets? Ralph, you're team dog. I'm going to be team cat. Okay?
Okay.
So, Ralph, please, let's kick off. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think dogs are great because they're friendly.
Oh, what do you mean dogs are friendly? My repair strategy.
Uh, well, they love people. They cuddle them.
That's true, but also cats do, don't they? I think.
But dogs do it in a special way.
Oh, that's true. I don't know what to say. Oh no, oh, I've been knocked out. Okay, anyway. Okay, so that's essentially the idea. I had another round prepared, Ralph, but I think we'll move on now if that's okay. Yeah, so that's basically the idea, debating, and the person who gets stuck, they get knocked out. Next person. Okay. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for your support in that. Yeah. So I hope that that model was clear for you guys. If you need me to explain it again, please write a message and I can answer. Okay. And finally, the final group of strategies. I've just got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to need to move on. In multi-level classes rather, some learners need more grammar practice, some need to review the vocabulary, some need speaking opportunities, some need additional challenge. This is essentially this is what happens, right? Different students need support in different areas. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do? Thinking about homework, you can provide homework as a choice board. Okay, this image was generated by ChatGPT, an AI software. I just said, I just put the bullet points of what different students could do for homework. So I said grammar practice, complete 10 grammar activities, vocabulary review, create a Quizlet, and ChatGPT generated this image. So as Patrick said, not best played. Yeah, sorry. It's been a long time since I've been a student, but yeah, thanks. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So you can put your ideas as a choice board for students to complete homework, and students choose. They must choose one, but they can choose more if they like. Okay, and you're giving them different ideas of what they can do. It doesn't have to be four. It can be the free task menu. That's a bit more catchy, right? And you can have choose option A, option B, option C, and you can adapt this. This really doesn't take. Louise says there's a terrible fight. Oh, good. Yeah, sorry, Louise. I'm just really not a very good boxer. But anyway, so you can have different options of what people can do for homework. Okay. Encouraging learners to choose one of these options to explore what they need to review or they need to do it, to need to work on. Okay. Or you can make it, you can incorporate a bit of mandatory work. So you can have the core plus choice. So everyone completes exercise 1 and 2 from the course book or exercise 1 and 2 from the worksheet, and then you choose one of these options. And this ensures that there is some core learning happening, but also some autonomous learning happening at the same time. Okay, you can kind of the same idea essentially, but framed in different ways. But what I'd say is extremely important for this is incorporating accountability. Okay, so not only often students will choose what they think sounds easiest. Okay, and that's okay at the beginning, but you want to start to challenge that as a teacher to foster autonomy. Okay, so if you say what tasks do they choose? Oh, this because I find vocabulary easy and I like it, and etc. Okay, and then you can say, okay, well, but if you find it easy, how much did you learn, Pedro? How much did you learn? And they might think, maybe not that much. Okay, you can challenge them in a polite, relaxed way, and this takes time to encourage learners. I need to choose the option which I need support in. Okay, so it's about having that conversation. You can have that at the beginning of a class. You can have that, whenever you have a moment with a student, having that conversation, encouraging them to make choices for their homework and for their learning, which represents what they need to work on. Okay. So encourage having that conversation with students, even with primary level students, even with early years, they start early. They are more mature than you think. Okay. So have that conversation. You just need to phrase it in a way which they will understand and they'll be able to process. Okay. So if it needs to be in Spanish or it needs to be in their first language, no problem. Okay. This is not a language learning activity. This is a reflective process of understanding how they learn best or what they need. So if initially that needs to be in their first language, that's okay. Okay. Later, put it into English. All right. So very quickly, we're about to finish I've run over a little bit. We're about to finish the webinar. Please tell me in the chat, in some comments, which of these strategies would you like to incorporate on Monday, next Monday, or next week, or the next class you have, or the next opportunity you have, which would you like to incorporate and why? Let's see some of your ideas. Verbal boxing, okay. Despite my absolutely horrific model, that's good to hear. The support network, great. Okay. All of them are okay. All of them are doable. I like to see that. Yes, they are all doable. They don't require a lot of extra work from the teacher. Ask free before me. I think that's really good. Yeah, nice. All of them. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's ambitious. Try maybe starting one idea and then another idea. Okay. You don't want to overwhelm students too much. One by one will be the best way. My today to say list. I like it. Great. Got to try them all. Nice. Sport network. Yeah. I think all of them are great. Yeah. A learning diary. Oh, nice name. Yeah, I think that one requires a bit of preparation and thought. But if you get that right, that is so effective. Challenge ladder verbal boxing, great. Core plus choice. Yeah, that's quite an easy way of encouraging homework as a choice. You have the mandatory task and then the option and then the choice activity. Yeah, great. Okay, right. Thank you guys. So that's that's the end of the webinar for today. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that useful. I hope you have some ideas that you can go ahead and um, apply in next week, if possible. The handout is also part of the session as well. So hopefully I've tried to kind of summarize it on the handout. And yeah, please get in touch with me if you have any questions about anything or if you want to collaborate on something. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ralph. Hmm.
Thank you, Milton. I guess you can stop sharing your screen. So
Yes.
we're both centered. There we go. Okay. Thank you. That was great. I mean, the chat has never stopped from comments, and we have lots of questions. So I made notes of some of them, and I think that I'll start with one that was very common. I mean, at least two people asked the same, very similar questions. Um, for example, in YouTube, in the chat, sorry, um, they were wondering about younger children,
Hmm.
like third grades, and in YouTube, someone also asked, what about younger students, like for example, from grade 1 to 4, which in this case they mentioned they tend to be very dependent on their teachers.
Hmm.
How would you adapt these strategies to children who are still very dependent?
Yeah, no, I mean that's where you need to start, right? And that's because that's where these routines really become, really become concrete if you get it right. And you have to kind of yeah. Just to start in a simple way. So, for example, things like homework, you won't like homework is a bit more abstract. I would wait until being slightly older levels, slightly older students to incorporate the kind of homework as a choice model. But for example, having kind of routines is really good for early younger students. Okay, so free before me. That is, it's memorable because it rhymes and there are just free choices that are always there. You can put that on a poster on in your classroom, and if a student's going directly to you, you say, "Oh, Juanito, you have a question? Remember, free before me," and you can point. Have you tried these options? And just by pointing to it and encouraging that routine every time a student comes to you before going to their other resources, that you install that as a routine. Okay. So just by having posters, repeating it, catchy phrases, so like free before me, makes things memorable, right? They'll remember free before me, and you have the poster, so you can just point at it when necessary and repeat it, as Shannon is saying. Yeah. So start small, start with routines rather than more abstract activities, and encourage it. It's don't make sure when students do ask for go to free resources before going to you, praise them. Oh, well done, very good. Or even whether they have resolved it independently or not, just praise them for going through that routine. And if they have resolved it independently, show to the class. Juan had a question about what the word, hobby means, and Itzel explained it to him. Juan, can you now tell us what it means? So kind of praising moments of learning that didn't involve the teacher and encouraging routines. Yeah. It's difficult, but when you get it right, it's really effective.
Positive reward. That's amazing. Good. Thank you. Um, Now, towards the beginning of the session, two people also expressed some sort of concern about students who are somehow disengaged from the
Mhm.
class, like teachers who report uh, students that are unmotivated, they perceive them as unmotivated,
Mhm.
or students who are reluctant to speak to their partners in collaborative moments. So they end up not speaking. and they are wondering how we can overcome this sort of issues that are more attitude, not related to attitude, students' attitudes towards the
Yeah.
language.
Yeah, I mean that's such a common issue, right? In particularly in secondary level students, I'd say, particularly with teens, disengagement. I think it's really difficult. I mean, motivation is a whole kind of motivation in the classroom is a whole thing in itself, right? But I think encouraging learner autonomy is one of the solutions to a disengaged, unmotivated student. So first of all, I'd say, well, why is the student not motivated? Okay, find out. Quite possibly, the student's not motivated because they are a higher level or a lower level. That's quite possibly the reason. They don't understand the activity, so they don't want to engage, or, oh, this is so easy, they don't want to engage. So, quite possibly, by encouraging these activities of different levels of challenge for a task, you're almost immediately responding to the source of demotivation. That could be the case, right? Reluctance to speak to their partner. Why are they reluctant? Okay, is it because they don't feel confident speaking in English? Okay, in that case, I know this is people think this is controversial, but it really isn't. In that case, allow for moments of L1 in the classroom. Allow students to talk together in their first language, particularly if it's understanding an activity or understanding a word. Something like the words, I don't know, to be busy. The explanation of to be busy is almost a bit more difficult than just saying the translation. Okay. So allowing use of L1 in the classroom in appropriate moments can help learners feel more secure and confident. And then in the moment when if they understand the different words, they understand the task they're doing, they may be more willing to do the practice activity in English. Okay. So I think there are two things there. Well, the first thing you need to do is understand the source of the motivation. Okay. Is it because it's too easy? Is it because it's too difficult? They're reluctant to speak because they're worried that they'll appear, that they won't appear the way they want to appear. If you can identify that, and then you can challenge you can resolve it by different things, encouraging L1, for example, or just by encouraging, making the task a bit easier for certain students. That can make them feel a bit more comfortable. It's a constant. This is a constant thing about learning, encouraging motivation, and there are different strategies for different reasons. But I'd say learner autonomy, encouraging that can be a real resolution to demotivation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talking about language one, like in our case, for instance, in Spanish, in some regions, in some regions where schools are located, it may be indigenous languages or any other. Some teachers in the chat were wondering about transferring some of these strategies to L1. Like for example, the poster you mentioned, with
Mhm.
some of the ideas with a flow chart.
Mhm.
Do you suggest, for example, that also goes into native language or L1?
I mean, it could do. Yeah. I think, you know, if that's going to make the class feel comfortable, and if that's appropriate for the context, do what is appropriate for your context. Definitely, 100%. In general, I'm of the opinion that classroom posters for an English classroom, for an English lesson, it's best if they're in English because that's something that they can review every day. And once they understand it, it's there, they can see it, and that's a very kind of a quick win you can have in learning, classroom strategies or classroom routines. If you can encourage that from English from the first day, I think that is a good way of encouraging like English as the main language in the classroom. But I'm not. It's not a one resolution to all situations. If in your context, incorporating that in the L1 would make a difference, then do it. Teaching English is about finding the right the right solution for the context. Okay, you may have a situation where they're secondary students, they're maybe they're 15 and they really are A0, A1, and they just really need to understand the routines to feel a bit of confidence. Okay, and in that situation, then it makes sense. Okay, so you need to decide as a teacher what's best.
Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, Milton. Thanks to the audience for your questions and your interaction. You were very active. Thanks once again to Milton Bradbury and also our moderators today, Melissa, Mariela on Zoom, and our colleagues in Facebook and YouTube. We also want to let you know that Milton will be back with us for a Facebook and YouTube live Q&A next Friday, 19th June, 19 June at 3 p.m. UK time. Okay, that's 3 p.m. UK time on Friday, 19th June. Milton will be joining us again. Our event has now come to an end, but we'll be back on the 17th of July with the next webinar event called Knowing the Subject. You can find more information about that and how to register in the links in the chat and within the comments. So thank you, everyone. We wish you a very pleasant morning, evening, whatever you are. Goodbye.